welcome everyone. This roundtable is the Core Games University of Silicon Valley USV and RoToArk roundtable on how with Core Games has worked together with educational institutions and students to provide students real-world experience and career opportunities. So to get started, I wanted to briefly introduce folks on the panel. So I'm David. I'm the Director of Creator Marketing here at Manticore Games. And I want to introduce Ricardo, who is the Director of Game Design and Development at USB. Edward Medina, who is a former student and graduate at USB. And then Nels at RoToArk, who is architecture designer and strategist. So the agenda for this, I want to just do a quick intro of what Core is for those of you that are not familiar with Core. Then we're going to dive into the panel for each school to briefly explain what how they've integrated Core into their classrooms and use the tools to help their students learn game development, real world skills, and what career opportunities this has brought to students like Edward. And then we're going to go through some questions and then open it up to the audience for Q&A. So to get started, for those of you that are not familiar with what Core is a free platform that lets anyone create, play, and share games. It's incredibly accessible that we want to redefine who can make games. We have anywhere from students to stay-at-home moms to retired granddads making games in Core, as well as professionals in the games industry who might work for a AAA gaming company during the day and then make games in Core during nights and weekends. We have over 20,000 games in the platform. We have raised over $160 million in fundraising, and Epic is one of our big partners and investors. And our mission is to redefine who can make games, how fast they can make them, how they make them, and kind of bring that creator revolution to anyone that wants to make games, just like we saw the creator revolution with video content on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. And we've seen a lot of interest from people in the educational field because it also empowers students to learn and grow and create much more quickly than ever before. And we'll go through a couple examples here. And then for those of you that are not familiar with the term UGC, that's user-generated content. So think of like platforms like Roblox and Minecraft that let anyone make games. The big difference with Core is that our platform is powered by the Unreal Engine, so it's much higher fidelity when it comes to graphics and gameplay and what's possible. And we also have seen non-gaming schools like RoToArk and the Southern California Institute of Architecture who are using it, to teach architecture. So it's been popular with certain educators because, especially in level design, you can't jump in and start making multiplayer games right away without having to worry about setting up servers and hosting fees and all of that. And you don't have to spend weeks and weeks learning the basics of Core before you start white boxing things. So yeah, and it's just also really easy to iterate and prototype. So I want to pass it off to USV and RoToArk so they can talk in more detail in terms of how they have used Core in their classes. And how about we start with University of Silicon Valley. So Ricardo, I'll kick it to you, and I'll move actually through your slides first.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Ricardo Cannon. I'm the department director for game design and development at USV. We used to be called Cogswell College, but we became a university once we started offering master's degrees. We are a nationally ranked top 20 game design program in the country, according to Princeton Review. This is just kind of a little advertisement slide of things we do there, but one of the things I want to highlight from this slide is the real world project studios, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Next slide. Yeah, so at USV, there's various classes that use core. The ones we're going to talk about today are our level design classes and our game studio classes. So it's kind of exactly what David said a few minutes ago about why we use core. It's because we can kind of follow industry standard kind of workflows, like we can have like real agile development, right? Students can start kind of implementing their designs quickly. They don't have to kind of have these like huge kind of technical hurdles, right? Like setting up networking and coding, right? So everyone in our program, which is a mixture of artists, game writers, and engineers, so they can all start designing, right? And this class really focuses on playable maps, so it's not really about creating beautiful art or stories. In fact, in this class, I think they were doing like capture the flag PvP maps. And a lot of students can start playtesting right away, getting feedback. They can iterate rapidly, make changes quickly. And then if they want to, because core has all these beautiful pre-made assets, like our more technical oriented students or less artistically oriented students can really kind of art it up and make it beautiful and immersive if they want to. Next slide. So they can still create 2D maps. Like this obviously wasn't made in core. The students just created this on whatever 2D they want, and then they can start bringing these things into the editor, right? So the next slide. So yeah, they can you can still white box in core if you want to. A lot of our level design instructors prefer students to still white box stuff because if it works in white box, it'll work when you add all the kind of immersive art and all of that stuff. And next slide. So playtesting iteration. So this is one of the kind of the earlier white box map where this is one of our engineering students, and they created kind of an actual kind of cool looking map that that works right away. All the mechanics already built in. They can start playtesting it, and they can just start adding assets like and beautiful assets. I always think of not just like models and 3D models, but texturing, sound, lighting, effects, like all of those things I count as assets. And all of those things are available to the students so they can start kind of making their level a little bit more immersive, right? Next slide. Yeah, so it also, you're not limited to any type of genre in core, whether it's a story genre or game genre. This happened to be like your PvP capture the flag map, but one person wanted to do a modern kind of warehouse, another person wanted to do like medieval kind of fantasy ruins. So you have all those options there, which is pretty awesome. And then let's see. So the other class we use is it's actually part of our real world project studios. So it's Game Studio, and it's a capstone senior project. It runs for 2 semesters. It can run for 2 semesters where they work on one kind of long projects, and sometimes they work with an external client. And for us, we were fortunate to have Manticore be that external client. So we got a lot of mentorship from them in that class, which was really great for our students. It kind of gives them that real world experience that we kind of talk about a lot. And then, so this is kind of one of the games they created. They created this tower defense game. This is just like some art overview and some of the levels they made. And then I think we have a quick video we can show. Hopefully this plays on. Yeah, so they can prototype it. The students start this prototyping phase, like making sure all the gameplay mechanics work. And then by the midterm, they already had art and working working gameplay. And then from there, it just became just polishing, play testing, iterating until just like real game development, it's until you run out of time basically, and you have to ship it. So they got a really good vertical slice. I think they did all this pretty quickly. At least like one trimester. So that was really a great experience. And then the other game was an idle clicker. So David wanted us to try to create a game that you don't usually see on the market in the core games. So they created an idle clicker, and they also love fishing. The students love fishing games. So they created like this idle clicker fishing game. They have multiple levels where you basically click away and see how much fish you can get, and you can upgrade your harpoon. You know, there's a little story mode and a little collection mode. Yeah, so that's kind of some of the stuff we do. And one of our students that's actually joined us today is Edward. He was involved in a lot of these classes. So let me just kind of introduce him real quick, or let him speak a little bit about kind of what his experience has been.
Yeah, hey, so I'm Edward. I graduated back in August, so I'm an alumni of USV. I took 2 of these classes. I took the Game Design 2 using Core, and I also took the Level Design class as well. The studio class was pretty interesting. It was like my first time ever using Core for any of the students here, and it was like, I think it was like pre-alpha, I believe, for Core as well. So it was a pretty good experience to be able to like test the engine and kind of like see its limits, which we definitely did test its limits because we were able to throw in about like 100,000 objects into one scene, just trying to see how far we could push the engine. It was really fun because we were able to create basically a full-fledged game in under 3 months. And then we got to do a lot of the polishing really quickly just because of how easy it was to just throw things onto the canvas and how easy it was to just kind of get things to work. And then same thing for the level design class. We didn't have to worry about which mechanics we wanted to implement. We didn't have to like find the code online. It was already in the content. And I don't have a picture of that on the slide here, but I do have a couple of my projects I worked on for a couple of the competitions, the game jams that were hosted. And the top one is a BioShock inspired map that I got done within 3 to 4 weeks, and something like that would have taken like 4, 5, 6 months maybe if I was like making everything from hand, making the models and texturing. But I was able to get that done with an amazing team of 4. It was me and then 3 other team meta members who kind of work under Manticore. Were able to get that done. And then on the top right is our my Suki Night Market, which I got done also in about 3 weeks for a city building jam, which I did get first place for, which is pretty awesome. So if you guys want to check any of these maps out, you can check them out on Core under my name. It's Kid Egg. Everything's there. And then the bottom right is a cool, awesome map. My very first project that I worked with for Team Meta, it was Strike Team Sector 9, and it's a cyberpunk dystopian city map. It was really awesome to work with. I got to work with like this amazing team. It was super fun. But those are some of my experiences that were given to me, working alongside Manticore and then by attending USV.
All right, and then one thing I do want to add that Ricardo alluded to was that besides the thousands and thousands of assets that Core offers, and Core is completely free, by the way, to create, play, to monetize, and to use. And we also have educational resources like our Core Academy and our Core Bootcamp that we provide for educators. People are able to create and iterate so quickly in Core because not only do we provide thousands of art, assets, 3D models, art, like VFX, and materials and so forth, but also sound, music, and entire game framework. So if you want to create like a multiplayer deathmatch game, you can do it in 10 minutes. One of our first tutorials actually make a first multiplayer deathmatch game in 10 minutes. So we have frameworks for different types of genres and different types of games. And we also have people making non-gaming experiences, which RoToArk can talk about, but also people just making like social spaces, machinima, and other art that's not playable, but just experiences. All right, then I'm gonna switch over to the RoToArk slide. So now wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about how you guys incorporated core into your class.
Yeah, hi everyone. So thank you for having us today. Just trying to think where to get started because it's kind of a hard act to follow. This was spring semester, so let me back up even further. Michael Rotundi, who was unfortunately able to join us today, is one of the founders and the former director of SciArc, which is the Southern California Institute of Architecture. I'm a graduate of the graduate program at SciArc, and after graduating, came on to work with Michael in his architecture practice, which is RoToArchitects, and I've continued on to be his assistant teacher and kind of co-teach a number of graduate level design studios with him at SciArc, focusing on architecture, but looking at alternative processes for learning and conceptualizing of the built environment. That has led us through looking at virtual reality, looking at board game design, looking at game design, and various other things. So when the COVID-19 pandemic began last spring and everything was shut down and all of the classes moved to Zoom, we really began to feel like Zoom was not a appropriate platform for architectural education, and we began to conduct our own research internally at RoToArchitects to find a better solution. Some of the things that we looked at have already been mentioned. Roblox was one, Minecraft was another, but as was mentioned, the aesthetic wasn't there. You know, we didn't want everything to end up being blocks. SciArc is kind of known for its extremely formal approach to architecture, and so when we discovered Core, we had a great opportunity to create a social space for our students to meet. We actually spent the summer prior to the fall semester rebuilding a facsimile of the physical school building where the students would meet in normal times typically. And so we would meet in the same lecture hall that we would meet in typically, albeit inside Core. Students would go to down the hallway to their studios the same way that they would, you know, in a typical situation, except everything was inside Core. And then each one of those virtual studio spaces was linked to a different world within Core that was that student's workplace. One of the things that we wanted to really explore, given the virtual nature of the studio, was for us to break away from the idea that the site or the found condition be a physical condition. And so we established four kind of base worlds: an earth world, water world, fire world, earth world, water world, air world, and fire world, that we developed as a starting point for our students, and then they kind of took it from there. One of the primary things that we looked at was how does navigation play a role within conceptualization of the built space within a virtual platform. There are some videos that I'm not sure how many of the videos actually made it in the presentation. This video that we're looking at is by Damian Lee, and I will post in the chat the names of the students that we're referencing, just to make sure they get credit, and also a link where you can actually go on Core and play all of these different experiences. So I'm not sure. I think he was an Earth World, but you can see here how, you know, there was a design process that paralleled actual development in Core. So part of what we spent a lot of time working on was defining that process. So starting in Rhino, which is a 3D modeling program, kind of mocking up space and getting an idea of scale. And Andy Depew, whose video is coming up now, he's actually he's an intern at RoToArchitects, and he actually built out the framework for us. So he has probably the most experience of anyone in our class with it. He developed a workflow where he would work in 3D CAD to develop these pretty complex structural connections, and then get all the dimensions and everything, and then rebuild those structural connections inside Core. So part of it was a workflow that was looking at architecture from a structural standpoint, architecture from a physical standpoint, but one of the things that we were primarily concerned with was the ability to tell story, or the ability for narrative to come to the forefront. As I was discussing with my peers on this panel prior to us getting started, RoToArchitects has worked with Eline Media, as well as Experimental Design, Alex McDowell and Alan Gershenfeld, and others from those organizations on a number of real world projects where we attempt to do something similar to this, but in the real world. So kind of marrying the storytelling that Alex is known for, the beautiful game design that Alan is known for, and then the architecture that Michael is known for universities and clients. And so that's kind of how we part of how we came to game design and storytelling being part of our workflow. And so this project that we're looking at here by Andy Depew is looking at the origin story of the Vietnamese people, kind of reprojected within this island environment where there are certain spaces for meditation and reflection, certain spaces for community production, certain spaces for personal spaces, and the entire island is organized according to these kind of axes of knowledge transfer. And so it's all very it's intended to be very diagrammatic of that spiritual quest, but kind of manifest through architectural, structural embodiment in this way. One of the things that I think, the major takeaway for Core from us was the ability to have that community in that time where we were all separate. And so we each had our own avatar, and we began to recognize people by their avatars, and we'd meet in the same room every day at the same time, and we'd break out into our subsequent projects, and really starting to define what it meant to work within a virtual space, as opposed to just screen sharing was really special. And I think the students were really receptive of that. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Niles. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the experiences were made by just like each experience was made by one student, right?
Correct. So it was one student working on one world, and then those were all linked into a hub world that we built. Yeah, and actually the following semester, last semester, we attempted to use Core again, where all of the students were working on one level, and we're using GitHub to manage it, and it was all working really well. So that's something that I would like to explore further. We kind of went down another path just from a pedagogical standpoint, but the technology is all there, and really excited to see how we can have multiple students collaborating on the development of one built environment, as well as everyone working on their own.
Great. And yeah, and all this work that you guys have seen from both SciArc and USV are just amazing, and it looks super high quality. They're absolutely beautiful, and they were made in very short amount of time by the students. So really impressive work by you all. So now.
That was about 10 weeks of work. Each one of those worlds was about 10 weeks. So very, very quick timeline.
Great. So yeah, so much faster than using traditional tools. So on that note, I actually have a question for Ed. So what it is like to use Core in comparison to traditional tools and the traditional pipeline that you've been taught at a game dev school?
When it comes to production, it's definitely a lot quicker. Since I took an environmental art class in Silicon Valley, or University of Silicon Valley, so I did have to make like every asset, by hand. Every texture had a texture, every object, everything had to be unique. The lighting was like all manual as well. So so when I transferred over to doing like level design in Core, with all the assets just being given to me, all I had to do was know how to like put them together, kind of kit bash them. So I was able to like do things in 1 week that would take me, maybe a month and a half of like, just modeling everything and then like texturing it. So it's definitely a lot quicker. It makes it a lot easier for me to get my ideas just in an engine, being able to test them, especially with like the frameworks that Core has, like the all of the shooter frameworks that it offers. I can just do, since I am more of a level designer, I can just like throw a quick level design in, see if it works, readjust it, and then like if I need to art it up real quick, I can just do that in like a couple days. And if I need to change it, I only lose like a couple hours worth of work rather than like a full week. So it's definitely a lot better, I would say, if I need to do like a quick rough draft or something.
Okay. And then one thing I want to clarify is that with Core, besides the thousands of assets that we provide for free, there's also what we call community content. So anyone who creates in Core can choose if they want to basically open source what they've created and upload it to make it available for anyone to use. So that can be a 3D model, that can be a script, that can be music, that can be anything that they've created within Core. So, and then there are like, there are even more pieces of content there that have been shared by the community, from entire games to individual scripts and models. So, a lot of assets that you can use in building your own experience or game. Besides the frameworks and assets that we offer. So it's, kind of think of it like open source modding space when you are building on, kind of like a very solid foundation that other people have worked on. And then I wanted to open up to Ricardo and Nels as well in terms of, using Core compared to the traditional pipeline, traditional tools.
Yeah, one of the things that kind of Edward mentioned is that kind of fast turnaround, because with us, when we're really concentrating on making the gameplay fun, they really need to kind of iterate, right? Like it's seldom do you get it right on that first pass, and making that less of a chore for students is one of the big pluses, right? Like if you know that it's just going to take a couple hours instead of a couple of weeks to make a change, they're more likely to change it, and kind of concentrate just on the classes where it's all about gameplay, right? It really kind of lets them do that quickly, and then they can have other students play it right away, and is it a better experience? Then they can keep that content in the game. So that's definitely one of the big pluses. Especially for our artists who can't code a lot of the times, they have all those mechanics built in. And they can script and still adjust it, but it really makes it kind of empowering for them, for everyone in the class.
Yeah, we get that feedback a lot for programmers who can't do art. A lot of their projects end up they keep they make what's called programmer art, right? And then for artists, they can't code. But with Core, because it appeals to people with no code, low code, or high code. The tools can complement your weaknesses if you don't have a team to that can offer the other skills. And now I want to ask Nels, in terms of Core as a tool compared to tools that you guys have used in the past, how has that experience been for you guys?
Well, let me just be honest and say it's completely different than anything that we've ever used in the past. So our students are very comfortable with a workflow that usually starts in Maya or Cinema 4D, makes a stop off in ZBrush before getting 3D printed out of powder and textured and so forth. So it's we are very comfortable pushing and pulling vertices, and oftentimes those models are then rendered extremely high quality and stuff like that. So there was a bit of a speed bump getting our students to realize that they can't just model whatever they want to model, but they have to really follow the kit bashing kind of procedure that is set up within Core. But once they kind of got past I can't do that, and they realized that this was the design parameters that had been assigned to their project for this semester, and began to kind of hack the system a little bit and realize, well, if I take the handle off of the pistol and I scale it up and I retexture it, and then I add this other thing to it, then I can really get pretty close to what I was, so once they kind of adopt that mindset, they were able to come up with some really, I mean, you guys saw the pictures and the videos, and I hope that you guys will go on and actually play the levels that they created. But I don't know that anyone just looking at this would see this as a kit bash project, right? I don't think anyone would realize that they weren't actually 3D modeling each one of these elements and texturing it and bringing it into Unreal. And I see some of the discussion in the chat about, you know, how the workflow is different than a Unity or different than an Unreal. And I think that's really the primary difference, is that we're not creating a 3D model and retopologizing it and texturing it and bringing it into a game engine and then applying a certain set of, you know, features to it. But all of that is kind of baked into the core platform itself. And, you know, for better or for worse, you kind of have to work with what's there. And in our case, we found out that simplifying that process, where the students didn't have to first model something and then figure out how to bring it into another software and then figure out how to program it and then figure out how to render it, allowed them to be a lot more free thinking with how they, you know, conceptualize their spaces, how they conceptualize their navigation and circulation and all of those kind of fun things. So that was really the primary difference for us, and we found that to be pretty exciting.
That's great to hear. For us, one of our goals is to reduce the amount of friction for creators, to let them create what they want and to be able to publish it. And, you know, there's also the option to monetize if they want, you know, add in-app purchases and turn their passion into a livelihood and into a career. And we've seen that happen with students that have won contracts with us or with our partners, with people that have made games that are very popular in core and monetizing through their audience as well. And I also want to provide a big context of Nels what mentioned in terms of kit bashing. So with core, you're not able to import 3D models like from Blender or Maya and so forth. You know, everything we provide that kind of like the basic building blocks, and then you can create whatever you want from that, and that's what we call kit bashing. So, but it may sound limiting, but you can see from all these beautiful worlds and games that the students have created that you can make anything you want from the basic building blocks that we provide, in addition to the full-fledged models that we have, where we have tile sets of different types of buildings, different types of like, you know, castles. There's a, you know, fantasy castle tile set, so you can make anything you want out of the like different themes that we have, whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, you know, urban, warfare, and so forth. So, and then next question I have is for the educators, how did you implement core into your curriculum? And then, you know, what are some of the coolest projects or creations that you have seen your students make in core, besides, I guess, the ones already shown here? Ricardo, why don't you go first?
It was really simple to kind of implement it, right? Our you know, especially for our design instructors, who themselves are, you know, working in the industry as a game designer. So they're technical, but it's really not their job to code or create art. So it was kind of an easy sell to say, hey, look, here's something where you don't have to worry so much about like getting everything networked, and you can just start concentrating on gameplay. So in that sense, it was really easy. And you know, the students are pretty technical, right? If they use Maya and Unreal and Unity, core wasn't that big a leap, right? It's kind of what Nels was talking about. Once they wrapped their head around, you know, this is how things work, these are the parameters in core, they got up and running really quickly. And also, you know, we were really thankful for you and you know, Elisa, who was super helpful in helping our instructors and even some of our students with you know, answering questions on Discord. So there was a lot of avenues with the YouTube tutorials. So there was a lot of places they can go to learn, you know, core, how to use core and how to work with core. So getting up and running with it was really fast. You know, they were, you know, it was a lot faster to get up and running in core than to try to teach a student how to use Unreal and Unity, and then how to create a fun game, right? So usually that's what happens, right? Like if they go into a level design 1 class can be like an earlier sophomore class, right? So a lot of times they don't have that much Unity or Unreal experience. So you spend like half the class like, here's how to use Unreal, and then you can start worrying about gameplay. So with Core, they can just start worrying. They can just start creating games right away. So it was a pretty good sell to our instructors in that way, and to the students.
Yeah, we hear that a lot from level designed educators and professors, in which they're like, yeah, I used to spend like a third or a half of the semester just teaching the basics of Unity so people can start actually white boxing levels and designing levels. But with Core, they can do it, just start doing it like the first week. So that's good here. What about you, Nels? In terms of, how you guys, implement the Core into your curriculum, and what cool creations you've seen from your students besides the one we've already shown.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this earlier. We spent the summer before the fall semester building out a copy of our school building, and that really allowed us to kind of maintain business as usual. I mean, instead of meeting physically, it was our avatars, but that was a really cool opportunity to have that kind of semi in-person community that our school is known for and is proud of. In terms of the actual curriculum, it wasn't that big of a leap. It was more about just switching from a physical site and using CAD programs and 3D modeling programs to solve a design challenge, instead of now we're doing a virtual site using virtual tools. It was very very closely aligned in many ways, and not to I'm going to make some enemies here among my students. The one that I think really stood out the most for me, if you can go to that slide that shows just the screenshots of ours, the next one. Yeah, so on the bottom right hand side, that's a project by Desmond Fregoso. He was the only student of about 15 students that took on the fire level challenge, and he was also the only student that created a new character. So when you load into that world, you actually become this like glowing ball of light, and you kind of bounce off of these floating, and it was an extremely architectural response to an impossible question of how do you create architecture out of pure energy. And I was really, they all did a fantastic job, but that one, just for the risks that he took, and what, he composed his own score for it, and I was just really, that project I think pushed the boundaries more than any of the others that I saw.
Yeah.
And it's available on for the public, because it's on Core and everything's open, so go play it.
Yeah, I remember that stood out to me as well. That was a very like trippy psychedelic experience. It reminded me a lot of like Child of Eden or like Rez, if people have played those. But it was just like very, very like unique. So I was very happy to see that. All right, and then if another educator or institution were to ask you for advice and how to integrate Core into their curriculums, what suggestions would you have for them about how they can do so?
So yeah, we just incorporated pretty organically into our curriculum. It's just such a good tool. So we didn't really need to create like any extra classes or training sessions. We already do game design, so it's like a great game design tool. So it was just let's just start using Core, and that was basically it. There wasn't a lot of IT involvement. Like there wasn't any of that kind of hurdles to set up. Since a lot of everything is taken, all the backend stuff is taken care of by Core. Usually when we do like a class that involves like multiplayer, we have to kind of make sure like even just locally, like all our PCs are kind of networked, and students still have to code in all that multiplayer stuff. So it was really easy to kind of integrate it. If you have a game design classes already and you work digitally, it's really just coming down to like, hey, let's use Core, and that was basically it.
Okay, what about you, Nels?
Well, I mean, I don't know how many other architecture schools out there are looking at, and maybe a lot more than I think of. I mean, I know the virtual reality, in some ways, has really permeated the architectural space. Maybe not in the way that I wish it would, but I think specifically for early early level design courses where students are working through the idea of space and how to conceptualize of space and how to think about larger questions around circulation and navigation and so forth, that it's kind of as Ricardo said, it doesn't really take a lot. Everything is hosted on the cloud. Most most devices can run it fairly easily, and just being able to kind of mock something up and meet in a virtual space that is spatial. It's not, it's still mediated by the two-dimensional plane of the screen, but it's not you're not screen sharing a PDF, which is kind of what everyone has devolved to from a remote education perspective in the design world. Maybe there's other stuff that's going on, I don't know. But we found this to be a very fun way to build community with our students that we couldn't, have a physical community with, or an in-person community with, I guess is a better way of saying it. And we were able to see some really great work, and I look forward to checking in with these students, periodically throughout their careers and kind of see if any of the stuff that we did this semester sticks with them.
Yeah, I know. I was really impressed by RoToArk and SciArc, how, I guess, avant-garde you guys were in this adopting technology, but in terms of like your curriculum as well, and how you were like holding, we basically rebuilt your campus virtually in core, and we're holding classes there. And even though all the students were separated during the pandemic, they could still physically, well, I guess in a virtual world, meet up there and hold classes there. So that was great to see.
Let me add one thing to that real fast, which was so we actually built a set of tools that would be auto-loaded onto players when they would enter the world, which was, we did like a laser pointer, and then we did like a spray can painter thing, so you could actually go up to one aspect of someone's world and kind of like spray it yellow and say, okay, this highlighted area needs to be reconsidered, or given the massive scale of some of these worlds, we need a laser pointer to kind of point stuff out. But we were actually able to create our own tools. So rather than like in Zoom, you have the annotation feature where you can kind of mark up stuff. It's a little bit harder in the 3D space, and so we were experimenting with like highlighters that would actually that would manifest or instantiate like these orbs that would kind of be left behind. So you could kind of sketch something in 3D that would be left over for that person to kind of go back to at a smaller scale, or we would explore with grouping larger objects and then scaling them down. We could actually pick them up and go from scale model to full size thing kind of instantly. So those types of features that you just are never going to get in the physical space were pretty exciting for us.
I agree. Well,
let me just one more thing, another dreaded subject, but as educators, incorporating core into your program, it's completely free. So I know, so you don't have to buy massive licenses of Unity Pro or things like that. So it's kind of one of the things that's kind of a touchy subject, but it's pretty important, especially for us being a kind of a for-profit college, or like any software we use, we kind of have to buy. But since core is free, that wasn't like that was an educational hurdle for us. We can just incorporate in that sense as well.
All right, great. So I want to answer some of the questions in the QA panel. So I'll go in order. So the first question is, what kind of curriculum is available? Should we integrate into our pre-existing lessons or follow what you have available? So it can be either one. So we have, in terms of resources, we have our Core Academy, which has a lot of lesson plans for different disciplines, whether you want to teach coding and our scripting language is Lua, or you want to teach art or game design. We have those curriculum available on our website, and if you're interested, you can stick around and contact us so we can provide some of this information to you. We also have a Educator Kit for running a core bootcamp that we specifically made for teaching core in classrooms that we can also make available to those that are interested and already have a lot of schools using that. The second question is, what's the business opportunity for game devs? Can they monetize their games? Also, can they easily port games elsewhere, or are core games only on core platforms? So in terms of monetization, yes, you can monetize. You can add in-app purchases and monetize any way you want, whether it's subscriptions, VIP areas, and so forth. And the revenue share is 50-50, and then you don't have to worry about like setting up servers, multiplayer games, music licenses, licenses for whole stack of software for 3D modeling, animation, and so forth. In terms of porting, so core games only exist in core because the game files themselves are actually very small files, just a few hundred kilobytes, or definition files of what assets are where and how they're transformed and used. So that's why when people share games, it's just basically a link to the game page. You click on it, and then the game loads in a matter of seconds when you click on the game page. So there's no assets or game for you to download. And then in terms of other business opportunities, I wanted to let Ed speak because he started using core as a student, but now he's had other opportunities open up to him since then.
Yeah, so after I graduated, I definitely started focusing mostly on all the game jams and competitions that Core hosted, and I joined a couple. I was able to win a couple as well for the survival game jam with my mastery map. That's the Bioshock inspired map, as well as the city building jam map, which was the Suki Night Market. It's gonna be on the top right there. So I was able to win first place with both of these maps here. And that definitely put me on the radar for Manticore and and their sub team Team Meta. So they reached out to me and they offered me a position to kind of join them and make official games on Manticore. So I was able to get an opportunity there, which was awesome. I mean, the team's amazing. I love working for them. I mean, I get to do what I love and I get paid for it. So it's like, there's no better opportunity there, right? So, but I also did get contacted out to do more contract work for 3D modeling with a Roblox studio, which I'm doing as well. So I was able to get like another opportunity with the help of David, who kind of was the middleman for me and the studio, and it's amazing opportunity as well. Yeah.
Great, and Ed, you do amazing work. So it's an easy pitch.
Thank you.
So another question we have is, we encourage our students to think about cross-industrial application of game technologies, where game devs enter other fields like film and television. To what extent is that supported by core? So I guess one, you can see how SciArc and RoToArk have used core in non-gaming ways. And so think of core as kind of like a virtual canvas in which anything is possible. We have seen people make non-gaming experiences. Like I said, someone made like a meditation experience in which people go in and then they meditate in this virtual world that's very like really peaceful and calming, especially during the pandemic when people couldn't go outside. We had this jam in which it was encouraging people to recreate real world cities and landmarks and vacation spots. And then with people recreating Bora Bora, the entire city of Singapore, UCLA, and Ed made this really cool like Japanese sci-fi cyberpunk market. So people could like go and take virtual vacations by visiting all these countries and collecting Easter eggs and so forth. So there's definitely ways to use core outside of the usual like gaming framework. All right, and then I see there's also a question about wanting to see a demo of core. So I don't think we'll have time for that in this session, but feel free to reach out to us, and then we can always schedule a separate time to do a demo for you guys that are interested. You can just leave your contact information in in chat, or you can just send me an email at david@manticoregames.com, and I can put that in the chat as well. Now I want to give an opportunity for last chance for questions before we wrap up. Yes, and Elisa made a good point. We also have a booth at the Games for Change Festival Expo Hall, so you can go there, and then there's a short video that explains, kind of like gives an overview of what Core is and gives a demo of the tool and so forth. And then we have a lot of resources online that you can see in terms of tutorials, showcases, overviews of the different tools that are available and so forth. All right, since I'm happy to stay on and answer more questions if there are, but I do want to thank my panelists for participating in this. It was so great to hear from you again and see all the great work that the students, or in the case of Ed, you have done and continue to do in the Core ecosystem. And we're super excited to keep working with you and see how your programs initiatives within Core keep evolving. So I'm going to thank all of you for attending as well. Feel free to reach out to me via email if you have any questions or want to arrange for that demo. And yeah, I'll stick around for a few more minutes if people have questions and just want to chat. Ricardo, Nels, Edward, thank you so much for your time. Do you have any, parting words for our viewers?
Oh, just thanks for having us. Thanks for letting us, share what we do at the school, and thanks to Manticore for being great partners with the school. And kind of looking forward to fall. We're going to be working with Manticore again. So, yeah, that's basically it. Looking forward to making more cool stuff.
Yeah, just thanks for giving us an opportunity to showcase our students' work today. They were really excited to use your product. We're excited to participate in Games for Change. Just let me know if anybody has any questions about anything we do. We'll be happy to set up time to chat.
Okay. And then Elisa shared the deck that we showed, and it has a slide with everyone's LinkedIn in case you want to reach out to us. But Nelson and I also provided our contact information in the chat. And so we want to thank all of you for coming. We want to thank Noel and the entire Game for Change Festival staff for hosting us. And the rest of the panelists are free to go. I'm going to stick around for a few more minutes since I see that there are more questions coming into chat. And thank you everyone for attending. And Linus, good to see you drop by.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys. All right, so let me check chat to see if there are any additional questions. So for the people that are interested in a demo or videos of a demo, just send me an email at david@manticoregames.com, and then we can send you some videos and arrange for a demo. And then Elisa in the chat is actually part of Manticore Games as well, so just FYI. So Greg asks, is there support for Manticore for new courses at the university level? So we provide a lot of resources for educators, and we can share those with you. But if you can, feel free to reach out to us in terms of what type of support you need, and we can always have that discussion. We're always happy to help and help you integrate Core into your curriculum. Well, I'm just going to play this video again while waiting for new questions because it's just such a beautiful video. Are any of the assets for Unreal accessible for Core? No, so all the assets that are available in Core have been made by Manticore, the official ones that you can find in the Core Assets tab inside the editor. Maybe I should just open up the editor and show how that works. Let me see if I can, I'll change my screen to share Core instead. Can you guys see the Core editor now? So if you go to new project, you can start from empty project. There are a lot of frameworks for different types of games, whether it's like a dungeon crawler, a top-down game, first-person shooter, third-person shooter, RPG, team deathmatch, and so forth, battle royale game. Like I mentioned, we also have frameworks that I mentioned that we provide, but in addition to that, we also have community projects. So these are people who open source their games to make it available for anyone to mod, to edit, to reimagine. And then there are tons and tons of games here that you can see. And all of our first-party games that we make as examples for the community, we open source them to let anyone create on their own. But if you go into kind of like, let's go into a framework. Let's go to like third-person deathmatch. You can see that when you load right away, you already have kind of like this white box level, and then I can hit play right away and start playing. So I don't have to worry about the the physics, the character, anything. It's immediately playable right away and with multiplayer built in. And then here we have core content, which is all the like pieces of content that we provide for free for all creators. So whether they're 3D models, to sound, music, VFX, we have even skyboxes, post-processing effects, UI, and so forth. So there's tons of stuff in here, even game components, if you're going to put in like AI, camera, logic, even vehicles. So I could just like drag and drop like a car here, and then you can see that, or a tank. And then you can have that in your game. Oops, I didn't mean to tank apart, but we can just drag and drop it in, so it's so it's available right away. Weapons and so forth, lighting, and then we have community content, which is made by the community, and then they can choose whether or not they want to share it with the rest of the community. So there's everything from NPC AI kits to different people that made their own skyboxes as well, their own guns, their own maps, buildings, and so forth. So anything that you can imagine, you can make available. You can find here. And then because this is white box, we also provide a lot of material. So if I just type in like terrain, for game components, so we go back to art. I can just drag and drop this and then have kind of like snow there or grass and so forth. Okay, another question from Greg is there an app ability to create linear video like Sequencer in Unreal Engine 4? So I'm not very technical, so that question is beyond my capabilities, but we do have kind of like a cinematic camera, and there's another tool that I believe people also use for it's spectator mode. So that's the roaming spectator camera And then there's a cinematic shot, and you can see there's a lot of different tools that are made available. So yeah, and if we go to a new project, I think one of the really cool things that we have is our terrain system. And then here, in which you can create like beautiful terrain in just a matter of seconds. So you can import height maps if you want to. So you can just import basically the Grand Canyon or the French Alps right away. Just get a height map from like Google. Do so, or you can just generate something. So if I want to generate like rocky hills, you can see that we just procedurally generate that. Or if I want to change that for sphere worlds, there's a bunch of different terrain that you can do, and then you can just apply different terrain materials to it right away. So there's moss. Oh, I guess I should delete that floor, the default floor. Desert, grass, and snow, and mountains in the background as well. And this is all voxel based, so it's you can carve it, you can sculpt it, and everything else. Anyways, if there are no more questions, then we'll wrap up. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions or just are interested in more resources. Elisa did post the deck in chat, and that has a link, a bunch of links to resources that we offer along with our contact information. So thank you so much to everyone for attending, and we look forward to hearing from you. And thank you, Noel, and the Games for Change staff for being so great to work with. All right, bye, everyone.